Hello, everyone. This is Kristen with the ABA Law Practice Division. Thank you for joining us for Digital Marketing Strategies for a New Year. This program is part of the Making the Client Connection webinar series from the Professional Development Board. Our speakers today are Patrick Wright, Gyi Tsakalakis, and Conrad Saam. Patrick Wright is a co-founder and managing partner of the Wright firm, LLP, and has continuously provided quality representation to families across the DFW Metroplex. Being board certified in family law by the Texas Board of Legal Specialization, Patrick Wright has built a name synonymous with superior customer care and innovative delivery of legal services. As a father of two and a husband, Patrick uniquely appreciates the challenges that modern families face both inside and outside of the courtroom. Gyi Tsakalakis helps lawyers put their best foot forward online because that's where clients are looking for them. As a former lawyer, Gyi is familiar with the unique considerations of ethical and effective law practice marketing. He regularly presents on legal marketing, including speaking at the Inner Circle of Advocates annual meeting, AVBO's Lawyer-nomics Conference, and AAJ's annual convention at 2014. He is also a regular contributor on the subject of legal marketing at Lawyerist, Attorney at Work, and Techno Lawyer. Conrad Saam is the founder of Mockingbird, an agency delivering advanced online marketing exclusively for the legal industry. He previously ran the marketing team for the wildly popular restaurant app Urban Spoon. He was an early contributor to the Search Engine Land's in-house column and has been featured in USA Today, the New York Times, and the Huffington Post, and is an author at Fine Law Jailbreak Guide. Conrad holds an MBA from Ross School of Business at the University of Michigan and tweets at Conrad Saam.
All right, thank you, Kristen. Man, this is amazing to be here today. I know that all of y'all who are listening have a lot of stuff going on because it's near the holidays, probably some shopping to do. But I really want to thank y'all for taking time out of your day. It's going to be about an hour, and we're going to go through digital marketing strategies for a new year with, I have to say, just from myself, two amazing presenters, Gyi and Conrad. Full disclosure, I've known Gyi for a while. He's worked with us, and so I can vouch for how smart he is. And I can vouch also, what was not mentioned by Christian is that Gyi's on the ABA Tech Show board. I'm right on that, aren't I, Gyi?
You are, and I hope to see everybody at Tech Show.
Yeah, and so there's a plug for Tech Show. If you're not familiar with that, please go look it up. Now, Conrad, I got to highlight this. So Conrad was the director of marketing for AVVO from 2006 until 2011. Did I get that right, Conrad?
That's right.
All right, and so also I know Conrad kind of from Gyi, although maybe Gyi doesn't want to claim that, but because they have a conference called the Bedlam Conference, which I used to think was secret, maybe it is, but if y'all haven't received an invitation to that, it is probably one of the finest legal marketing conferences that exist. And I really think it's sort of a secret, but it's a great conference with a bunch of different agencies. And if you're not familiar with that, you got to check it out. Now, one more point before I get us into educating, which is that I didn't know this, and I hate to say this because I told Gyi this morning and felt kind of bad about it, that both Conrad and Gyi host their own podcast on Legal Talk Network, and it's the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing Hour, if I'm saying that right. Did I get that right?
Yep.
Fabulous podcast if you want more information on this subject. And lastly, we're going to be doing a command performance of this in a little bit different format for the American Bar Association on the Lawyer Leadership Mastermind Series on January 18th of 2022. And so if you're interested in a more sort of hands-on participatory meeting where we have small groups, the ABA Lawyer Leadership Mastermind Series is where that you can get that. And so now our goal for today is to help you sort of start planning for 2022. And so like Gyi had put in the chat, certainly ask questions, and get information to us, because our goal here is to make sure that you get value and that you get what you need to help plan for 2022. Now, we have a slide deck, which we may, go back and forth with to sort of help us guide us along. But a lot of this is just going to be us talking. And I will say this too, I'm going to try to moderate Conrad and Gyi, but I will say that sometimes there are very opinionated people who have a lot of information. So I'm just going to start out by going to Gyi real quick and hitting Gyi with a question. So Gyi, I know that you're a fan of Stoicism, and so
student of it.
Student of it. And so I know that I think Ryan Holiday, who wrote a bunch of books on that, I noticed his Stoic post this morning, and I don't know if you get that blog post or the email on it, but it was talking about sort of time and what you do with time. And if we look at time, we've got about 2 weeks left in the year. And so Gyi, here's my first question to you, which is, if you're a lawyer from a marketing standpoint, what's the one thing that you should be doing in the next 2 weeks to prepare for 2022?
Build your plan. Conrad and I talk about this a lot, but like, what we regularly see are just executed tactics, but not in the framework of an actual plan that ties to objective business metrics for your firm. We're going to talk more about that, but now, look, it's the end of the year. It's natural cycle of the universe for us. And you should be thinking about like, hey, what are my objectives for this coming year from a business standpoint? And how am I going to meet those objectives with a marketing plan? That's what I'd be doing.
And so when you say that, and I know that Conrad, I think I've heard you being compared to the legal marketing version of Gary Vee. I think I remember that from someone comparing you to Gary Vee maybe. And so, Gary talks about sort of the overhead execution, and he talks about the tools or the tactics that sort of Gyi was referring to. What would you say to this idea of developing a plan for the next 2 weeks? Do you agree with Gyi on that, or what would you say?
Yeah, I mean, in the Lunch Hour Legal Marketing podcast that we just recorded earlier this week, we talk about this a lot. Gyi's point is really salient here. A lot of you guys don't have a plan. And if you do have a plan, it looks something like this. What do you want to do next year? We want to grow. How much do you want to grow? Bigger. How much bigger? More than today. Where are we today? Not really sure, right? You're like, okay, well, I can't build a plan. We don't know where we're trying to go. And so one of the hardest things at law firms, the realities are like everyone feels like they should be doing some marketing things, but they don't actually know where they're trying to go with that. And so at the rudimentary level of the plan, you need to understand what your objectives are. So I will give you 2 extreme examples. We have a client in Texas who wants to be the largest employment law firm in Texas. And their marketing budget is $5,000 a month, right? They're not going to get out of Dallas with that. It doesn't work, right? Conversely, we have a couple of clients that are like, hey, you know what? Right now we're killing it. And I don't really want to grow. I'm happy where I am. And so our job right now is to spend as little on their marketing as possible because they're not investing in the future. They're just making profit, right? And so the more you spend on marketing, the smaller your short-term profit is. And that's totally okay. But those are 2 fundamentally different realities that these firms are operating in. You have to start with where are we trying to go? And you need metrics that are, it's revenue, number of matters, number of attorneys, number of offices, number of qualified leads, consultations. Like it's something like that. It's not bigger.
And so I know that I was at a conference recently, and someone was sort of pitching the idea that the more money you spent, the more clients you would get. And so that to me just seems sort of like burning cash. But what you're talking about from a metric standpoint is some way to measure your spend. So to determine what your ROI is. Is that pretty accurate?
So I think, and depending on the practice area, ROI can be, I don't love the ROI conversation because it's a great investment metric. You're trying to get as much out of the dollar you put into, Vanguard as you possibly can. That's not necessarily the objective of law firms, right? For that second example that I told you, the actual answer is yes. They want to spend as little on marketing as they possibly can. So anything that they do needs to deliver as much as it possibly can. Other law firms, you're not maximizing ROI. You're a high volume car accident firm. You maximize ROI by getting all of your business from referrals instead of Google, right? Not necessarily exactly what you want to do. But I look at my very strong bias here, and this is evolved, is you guys should be talking about consultations, right? How many consultations are we driving? And most legal marketing agencies stop at like, we're delivering a bunch of forms and phone calls. Most of them are garbage. We all know that. So why are we talking about that? And so for me, that metric, the thing that you should be able to measure is the number of consultations and where they're coming from. And then you can make the evaluation of whether or not continuing to spend money on that thing makes sense or not, right? And sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it really doesn't.
So let me, and I had mentioned this before to Gyi, but there was sort of the idea, because I'm a firm owner, and if I have associates in my firm, I sort of looking at it from how much is it the firm's responsibility? How much is it the individual lawyer's responsibility, to sort of brand and market for themselves? Gyi, what do you think about that from an individual lawyer versus firm? Because I know we have probably on this call, a lot of lawyers who are running their own shop, which would apply to them. And we may have lawyers that are working for bigger firms that maybe, should they be investing their time in individual marketing? Comment on that, Gyi.
Yeah. And so, as you allude to, it depends on who we're talking to, right? So like for me, kind of the maxim here is that unless you're like a nationally recognized law firm that services, Fortune 500 companies, and your target audience is, chief legal counsel for well-known, most other legal services consumers, they hire lawyers, not law firms, right? So, solos should know this, right? Like they're not hiring you because of you got some kind of fancy logo or like you have a really cool like firm name or something. They're hiring you because of who you are, right? They want to know you. And so you better be focused on finding ways to communicate your expertise and the value of your services as you, the practitioner. I think the interesting one is, and you had mentioned this, like if you're an associate in Big Law, and you're like, well, number one, you're like, I don't have any time for marketing, right? Because I have them head down and I'm working, million hours of, well, not a million, but you know what I mean. But my point is,
like
we talked about, 500,000. My point is that if you want to build equity into your brand that goes with you, if you ever want to change firms, I highly recommend that you spend some time investing in that. And, firm leaders, they might not love that because it makes you a lot more valuable. And you see this all the time when high profile lawyers that have developed a brand change firms. They're taking all that audience with them. They're taking that client base with them. They're taking those relationships with them. And so if you're a young associate at a big firm, like I would definitely invest in building, the marketing people call it personal branding, but it's relationships and reputation. Like that's what you really need to build, and you need to be doing that in a way that you can communicate that across all these different platforms and channels and in the real world as well.
And so I saw recently that there was an article out by Ruby, and they had referenced some sort of facts about legal consumer behavior going into 2022. And I think it's pretty consistent with what some of the stuff that you guys are familiar with, that reference 96% of people are seeking legal advice through the use of a search engine, was one of the numbers that they gave. And 74% of consumers visit a law firm's website to take action, and 62% of legal searches are non-branded by Ruby's numbers. So pretty much it says that since our topic today is digital marketing, I mean, that's a really important place for lawyers to generate business based upon what the numbers show. Y'all agree with that?
Well, yeah. And here's the other thing, and I'll let Conrad chime in because I don't want to dominate this conversation here, but it doesn't matter if someone hears about you in the real world or they're at, you go to the same gym and they're like, hey, I've got this issue. Do you know somebody? Guess what's happening? Everybody's going online to look up information about the lawyer, regardless. And so whether it's brand or non-brand, like what I always talk about is the lines between digital and the real world are very blurred, right? Because we know that people, even if they get a referral in the real world, it's a family referral, a friend referral, a professional referral, the person is going to go look you up online, and what they find there is going to play some role in their impression of you. So that's my take of it.
And so, Conrad, what do you think about, and I'm going to change it a tad, what do you think about that COVID's done to the consumer behavior is from a marketing standpoint?
Well, I mean, it's accelerated the use of technology, obviously. I mean, we can't belabor that point enough, making it easy to connect with people through technology without sitting across the street from them or across the desk from them, which is ironically why I'm sitting in a hotel room. I'm coming to meet a prospective client in Las Vegas because so, I mean, I can't remember where we had this conversation, but yes, there's a lot of things that technology can do. And yet there are things that are really personable. There's a lot of things that automation can do, right? And automate the things that don't require the person, but have the personal touch when you need that personal touch. And so, we're meeting in Zoom, we're doing online payments. It's really, it's pushed law firms to adopt technology, right? And I think that's good. It's been good for the consumer. My counterpoint is don't forget the personal things. Right. And technology can be a part of that. So I'll use a stupid example, but it's one that no one uses and very few use. Send a video after you have that consultation, talking about the consultation, right? Hey, sorry to hear about the accident, Mike. Here are the 3 things that you should do next. It was really great talking to you. Hope your wife is feeling better. Video, right? So that's a combination of personal and technology. We can be doing more with that as a legal profession to let the personality. You said this before. People hire lawyers, not people who happen not law degrees, right? So let that come through with technology.
So to sort of chime in on the video comment, one of the trends that I noted from my research on it was short do-it-yourself videos. Which is what one of the sort of recommendations was. And it sort of talked about how that TikTok had shifted the landscape of social media. And so I'm going to come back to you on Conrad on this one, but I'm going to go to Gyi first. Gyi, do you think that should lawyers be doing videos on TikTok?
People love asking the question of like, what should I be doing? And I'm like, I have no idea. Are you good? Can you dance? Right? Are you entertaining? Like, are you funny? Because now there's a lawyer. I think it's Attorney Mike on TikTok. You can go check him out. He's got millions of followers. He's got tons of engagement. And if you ask him, he'll tell you people are contacting him through TikTok to ask them questions and generate consultations. Does that mean that every lawyer should be on TikTok? No, I don't think that. And so, you got to know yourself. You got to know what you're interested in, what you're good at, where your audience is. Look, if you're serving millennials and creators, like, yeah, you probably should be where they are all day, right? If you're serving, if your target audience is the general counsel of Nabisco, I don't know why that came into my head, but guess what? That person's probably not spending a ton of time on TikTok. So you got to know your audience. You got to know yourself. But we can't make these blanket statements. And this is where when we're going to talk about shiny objects, but like a new technology comes out, right now it's the metaverse, right? Oh, I got to go set my firm up. I remember when lawyers were calling me up and being like, hey man, can you set me up on Pokemon Go? I'm like, are you serious? That's where you're putting your marketing dollars? Like, and so again, it comes back to that plan. And so the plan is, you got to first know your audience. Who are the people that you're trying to attract to your practice? Where are they spending time? And how can you communicate to them in a way with whether it's information or entertainment or education or expertise, that they're going to be likely to think about you and call you and get into your quote unquote funnel or your consideration set so they can think about hiring you when they need you.
All right. So let me ask you this. Because we do have a question here about, is it important to include your LinkedIn profile in your emails? What do you think about that, Conrad?
I mean, it goes back to Gyi's point, depends on the audience. I think LinkedIn is underutilized among the legal profession, depending on your practice area, right? There's a lot that can be done on LinkedIn. I call LinkedIn the Tinder of the business world. But there's a lot of marketing that can be done on LinkedIn. Overall, I'm going to go back to Gyi's point, whether you get referred online or offline, at that soccer game or from the CEO who happens to know who you are, people are looking up your profile, right? And they're learning about you. LinkedIn is built to make that happen, right? That is the entire purpose of LinkedIn. So if you find yourself, it would be odd that you are practicing an attorney whose background and reputation was not relevant to the people who are choosing to hire you. And therefore, LinkedIn makes a lot of sense. Lots of other things make sense too, but that's the whole point.
So Kimberly Perry also asked this follow-up too, that do people respond to emails and private messages that describe a lawyer's expertise and experience? So if I put, sort of an email or a private message that describes a lawyer's experience, is that going to get people to respond more or?
This is a good one. So this is going to Gyi's point. So it's a dichotomy here. We're talking about LinkedIn, which is basically a resume. That's what Ava was, basically a resume, right? Resume. Who wants to go sit down and read a resume? Absolutely nobody, right? They're boring. The LinkedIn, it's boring. And so it's a glance. It's a 2-second review. For me, what you're really talking about here, and I think it was Kristen who asked the question, who the hell are you as a lawyer, as a person? Why do you do this? What do you like? We were bantering before this call, like how you present yourself. I typically wear a t-shirt to client meetings because I'm kind of the weird Seattle techno nerd, and I lean into that really hard. I do that on purpose. But who you are come out. I think, mentioning that you wrote the 7 papers on the 7th district courts, and won the blah, blah, like no one wants to read that crap. But
unless you're an appellate lawyer, right?
Unless you're But
right.
It's like people, the resume stuff, it's an important scan, which is why these we call them trust marks, why the super lawyers things are actually important, even though I make fun of it. Why the AVA rating is actually important, even though I make fun of it. Why Lawyers of Distinction Award, which is a scam award, actually works. They're looking to these really short things to evaluate whether or not you're a solid attorney. But who you are, let that come through. You guys spend so much time trying to convince people that you're a lawyer. They already know you're a lawyer. Who are you?
And so a follow-up to that question, which is an overgeneralized question that I'm throwing out to Conrad or Gyi, whoever wants to answer it, which is, as a lawyer, how should I use LinkedIn?
So I think that's a great question, actually. And that was what I wanted to talk about in response to Kimberly's question as well. So, do people respond to emails and private messages that describe a lawyer's expertise and experience? If you cold message somebody on LinkedIn with your expertise and experience, probably not. They're probably going to actually get annoyed by it and probably mark it as spam and maybe block you. On the other hand, if you have a relationship with someone that you've connected with on LinkedIn, or maybe you've commented on some of their content and they've engaged with you and blah, 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 and you see something that they post and they look like they're in need of your expertise, then a message to them saying, hey, I saw your post asking about this, happens to be the thing that I do. In fact, I've written about it. I've spoken about it. I'm like the leading person who does this thing. Guess what? They're probably going to respond to that. So I think of another good example of someone I think that does a pretty good job of this kind of stuff. Because I love to give tactical examples so people can actually see, but go check out Bill Marler on LinkedIn and around the web. So he's a food safety lawyer. I think he's actually in Seattle. He's the person that has a national reputation for that. If you're on LinkedIn and you're like, I ate at Applebee's and I got sick. No aspersions to Applebee's, but I got sick on food poisoning, and Bill Marler reaches out to you and be like, hey, I saw that you got listeria from blah, blah, blah. I wanted to let you know that there's an outbreak. Here's the CDC stuff. Guess what? They're going to be like, thank you so much for sharing that. But not if Bill Marler just goes out to people cold on LinkedIn and is like, I am the leading nation food safety expert. If you ever have a food safety issue, please contact me. No one wants to hear that.
At foodsafetyexpert.com, right? But I want to jump on this with the LinkedIn thing. You were talking about pushing expertise versus demonstrating expertise, and it's a fine line. A lot of you write blog posts for, sometimes I wonder why, but that is a place to demonstrate expertise. The trick that you can do with a LinkedIn or a Facebook And I think this is missed by most marketing people and almost every lawyer. We talk a lot about content marketing. So, all right, we wrote the content. Yay, we wrote the content. Guess what? No one's seen it. This is where you use social to leverage the power of the reach to get that expertise in front of people. So it's not just content marketing, it's marketing content. It's getting the expertise and then taking the next step of pushing that in front of people. And I will tell you, most of the time, people spend 80% of the time writing the content or developing the content, whatever it may be, and they forget about the marketing part. And it really should be backwards. 80% of the effort should be on distributing that as opposed to just writing it.
So let me go back to another comment, Conrad, that you had about sort of the super lawyers and the avos and the lawyers of distinction.
Yeah.
I noted that for those of y'all that are listening, I noted that the super lawyers, I should say, voting deadline is December 22nd. And so they used to send out this email that said, time to vote, or here are your peers or whatever. And then it looks like they've sort of changed their format a little bit that said vote throughout the year. And then anything that's in the system as of December 2nd, they sort of, take it. So if people are listening and they're wondering, I wonder when that deadline is, December 22nd, if you're going to vote on that. But the reason why, I brought it back up was twofold. Number one, do people have any idea whether these sites are legit or not? Or yeah, I mean,
No.
So I was involved with doing a rebrand on the American Academy of Matrimonial Lawyers, and we started searching like other sites that might be confusing. And I'll tell you that I was looking at some sites, and you're like, as a consumer, I don't know if I could tell what the real site was versus what the fake site was. And so, any thought on that?
I did a great podcast with J. Craig Williams about this exact topic. And he kept pushing me at the interview to be like, so what should lawyers do? I don't know, right? You can make up an award. We make fun of this with a badge of fire. Go make something up and put it on your website and watch your conversions increase, because it happens, right? The lawyers of distinction.
So it will increase your conversions?
Listen, tell me how many consumers know what AVO is. Tell me how many consumers know what super lawyers is. Tell me how many consumers know what an AV rating is. AV was the place where they kept overhead transparencies when I was in high school, right? So like no one knows what these things are. And then there are the fake awards that are all over the place, right? And I see them all the time. I see them from some of my clients. The consumers don't know. And that it's problematic. I'm surprised some of the bars haven't gotten more involved in this. It's a gross business. But here's the thing, the takeaway for lawyers is people use third-party affirmation, regardless of the quality of that third-party affirmation, to evaluate the quality of you as a lawyer. So that sucks. It's wrong. I wish it was different. Let's all hate marketers. Let's kick them when they're down. But like, that is a fact that you are living in that world.
So being a super lawyer or being on AVO, it still matters.
Sorry, let me be super clear by what I mean. When we test this, the presence of those, what I call trust marks, improve the conversion rate of whether or not someone contacts that law firm. That is empirical fact.
And again, if you think about it, it's going to matter more to unsophisticated legal services consumers. So if you don't know a lawyer and you're not a very sophisticated consumer and you're in a particular practice context, like you got hurt in a car accident or you're thinking about getting a divorce, those trust markers are going to become that much more important. If you're a sophisticated legal services consumer and you're shopping around and you're asking people for referrals and you're asking, blah, 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 then those trust markers probably don't play as much of a role. But I think to Conrad's point is like, look, we don't like them. We think a lot of them are, kind of gross. But if depending on your audience, those badges make a difference. And, the same thing's true with testimonials. I mean, You know, a lot of these
100%.
testimonials, you look at it and you're like, you know, people are making these decisions. An unsophisticated consumer. One of the things that's blown my mind over the last like 15 years of doing this is that people are making decisions to contact a lawyer right from the local pack results based on the star numbers, just like they would go and shop for a TV on Amazon. So it's, you know, here's a local service ad. They're maybe this is a bad example because in LSA we'll talk about this, but in the local pack, you can call right from the listing, right? They're not even clicking through to the website. I couldn't believe this when I first saw it, but people will pull this up on their computer. They won't even click. They'll just call right from here. Who looks good? They matches my category. They got the most reviews. They're open right now. I'm calling the number before they even get through. So anyway, I think, you know, again, it's marshaling that evidence of your reputation. You do that through testimonials. I think you do it through some of these third-party validators. You got to pick which ones you think put your best foot forward. I'll tell you another thing too that we've seen with the award stuff, especially if you're a local lawyer. Focus on the ones that are local specific, because super lawyers is one thing, but like, you know, Michigan Lawyers Weekly best lawyer for personal injury, that's a totally different validation than just like super lawyer, right? So localized, practice specific, those validators are much more powerful.
So
This
for
episode brought to you by Michigan Lawyers Weekly.
So for 2022, reviews important, right?
I mean, do we? Is that even is that a question? Do we?
Yeah,
do
I
we
mean,
need to
more
know
of a
that?
statement.
Yeah, right. All right.
More of a statement. So one of those things that I also sort of identified, which is sort of old, but reviews matter, right? You guys agree?
Conrad?
Conrad?
I mean, they matter to the consumer, and they matter to the Google, and they matter. Period. I don't want to go even into scratching into the manipulated reviews. And Section 230, like that's a week-long class. But
So I will say this, Conrad, just so that the listeners know that you guys did not one, but on your Legal Talk Network show, y'all did 2 shows on 230 and fake reviews. So
yeah,
in the interest of time, because we want to kind of hit more stuff here, for a deeper dive, check out both of your 2 podcasts on 230 and fake reviews, and sort of which dean did y'all have on there to talk about that from an ethics standpoint?
Eric Goldman, who's like, we were so lucky to get him.
we were
like
starstruck. I will say that. Like I've been reading him forever. He's unbelievable, and he agreed, and he did 2 sessions with us.
Yeah, great session on it. But anyway, So let me ask you this, and I'm going to throw this one at Conrad. So summer of 2021, Google launched a series of core updates. And the comment is that they seem to affect your money or your life websites more deeply than others.
Yeah.
And so tell the listeners sort of what was that core update about, and how it might affect them.
So it's difficult. So the your money or your life thing was basically a response to what were considered to be overly aggressive content about kind of the end of the world, right? I don't mean that in a religious sense. I mean like things that are really damaging from a medical perspective, from a financial perspective. And frankly, legal falls right in the middle of that. Most of you guys are dealing with people who are dealing with some of the darkest days of their lives. And so there was a push away from overly flowery marketing language that was pushing fear, right? So you should do this or you're going to jail. You should do this or your children will be taken away from you. You should do this, call me, or the insurance company will never pay out. And so that came out with, and so it was really kind of a look at the language and content that was being used. With all of these core algo updates, you know, there was one that just came out right before Thanksgiving and everyone was ticked off because it came out before Thanksgiving. There's a lot of motion going on, right? And whether or not it impacts legal or not, law firms should have a feel for what their inbound traffic from organic and local search is on a regular basis, and determine whether or not that is changing fundamentally. And so, because it will be, right? It's hard to look at these things and one law firm at a time and make any recommendations. That's why and this is very self-centered, but like, that's why having a firm that focuses specific on legal, like Attorney Sync, like they can look at a whole bunch, 100 profiles and see what's actually changed. Are things going better for you? Are they going worse for you? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So let me jump in there on that and ask you this, because there's this concept of EAT metrics, expertise, authoritativeness, and trustworthiness. And so if someone was looking at their sort of digital marketing, is Google rewarding those things?
Gyi, what do you think about EAT?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm a longtime SEO. I don't put a lot of credence into what Google says. I don't really chase the algos. Google's PR team is much more effective in legal than their web spam fighting team. And so, look, you asked me, should you demonstrate expertise and authority? I don't know, content and trusted content. Yeah, you should, but not for Google. You should do that because that's a great way to position yourself as an expert.
But
and
you sound
by
like
the
a
way,
Google spokesperson.
yeah, and by the way, if Google gets better at rewarding that kind of content, awesome. But algorithm updates and we've got the proximity or vicinity update or whatever it is. You're going to drive yourself nuts trying to chase these algorithms. You want to talk about SEO? You got to publish content that actually earns links. You got to fix the technical stuff that's going on your website. But at the end of the day, if you're trying to go out there and every time Google publishes something, I mean, they're doing 500 updates a month. You're going to drive yourself nuts. And by the way, people like Gyi and Conrad, we're selling fear, uncertainty, and doubt about these algorithm updates. So it's like, oh yeah, there's this update. You got to change all your stuff. It's like, no, you don't. You got to publish stuff that actually people want to read and link to and share. And yeah, you got to get the technical stuff right. Don't get me wrong. You got to have a fast site. You got to get your meta information right. You want to have your structured data right. But look, chasing these algorithm updates is going to drive you nuts. And it's not going to do that much. Most of these updates don't do a ton unless you're doing something really sketchy.
So we don't want to do sketchy stuff. Let's talk about change. So on the screen that you have up here has G and B crossed out. And then you have GBP in there. I want to make sure I've said it slowly and correctly since I keep referring it to G and B. And so, Conrad, what is that and why does it matter?
It doesn't matter. I mean, it's an example of things that change. Google changes. I don't know, like someone at Google who oversees all their branding work. I don't know. I have no, they just keep changing names. So Google My Business has become Google Business Profile. Who cares? Nobody. Does it change anything? No. The interesting thing, although ironically on this slide, because you're talking about change, this is a new layout for the 3-pack that has now become very, very commonplace, right?
So let's break that down a little bit.
Yeah.
So one, other than just the rebranding on the name, and I'm just going to keep referring it to Google My Business because frankly, I like that better. But forget what Google says. But what should a local lawyer, law firm, if they're not don't have Google My Business, should they get in it? What is it? How do they use it effectively?
Well, yes, they should have it. They may already have it and they don't know it. This is where the reviews happen. So it's extremely important. It's also the first unpaid opportunity on the search results page. It's highly tied to your office. So the fewer competitors nearby, the more effective this is going to be, period, right? I'm sitting in the middle of Las Vegas. You want to start a Google My Business profile right now, expect that to rank sometime in 2031. But in many cases, this can be a source of massive free traffic. The other thing, and I grabbed this other screenshot on the right here just because it annoys both Gyi and myself. The names for your business make a big difference as to whether or not you show up. If there are keywords in your name, you will show up better. This is, again, Las Vegas. 3 out of the 4 results I've got here have personal injury, accident and injury law. Like, it's part of the game, right? Do we like that? No. Is it stupid? Yes. Should you jump through the hoops? If you want business, probably.
And as far as what you're seeing, and I don't know if we have I know that Gyi was mentioning it, and I'll throw this question to Gyi, as far as what's showing up on a Google search right now. And Gyi, I think Gyi knows what I mean by that. As far as, at one point in time, I don't know, I'm going to go way back. I think it was like the 10 pack or something. And then they started putting maps in it. And then, and I will say many moons ago, galaxies far away, I thought, I'm going to get a bunch of websites and I'm going to see in whatever the 10 pack was, how many sites I can rank in that for my local search. And I had like 9 out of 10 locally. Now I don't know if I can get one in there. And so, but the layout of that page has changed so substantially over the years. Can you comment on that, Gyi, a little bit, and as far as what's showing up there and why?
Yeah, and I'll tell folks this: if you're sitting there and you've got your phone out and you're watching this, go do a search, right? Do a search, whether it's a search on your name or a search on your practice area plus city plus attorney. And you're going to get a really good sense of how limited the real estate is, right? So like, and Conrad, you go back to the local the services ad slide. But the first thing that you're going to see for most of those types of searches, those non-brand category searches, is a local services ad. That's a paid ad, pay per lead, you pay Google. This is not what we're talking about with Google Business Profiles. But the point here is, and I also want to come back to what Conrad said. I mean, I tell people, if you're a local lawyer who serves their local community, you're a personal injury lawyer, a criminal defense lawyer, you're a divorce lawyer, if you do nothing else online, focus on Google My Business or Google Business Profiles, because when people search on your name, so when that person gives you that that someone in your network gives that referral, however it comes in, they're going to go search you on Google, and that's what's going to come up. And it's going to show testimonials. It's going to show your location. It's going to show your phone number. It's going to show, it gives you the opportunity to use imagery and video. So what's more validating than hearing it in your own words of who you help, how you help, why you're uniquely qualified to help? That's all happening right in that interface before they even get to your fancy website with all the bells and whistles. Like, those impressions are being formed right inside people's minds, right on that search result page. And then when you talk about, and if you're on your phone right now and you're scrolling through there, guess what? There's limited real estate there. So, I think as Patrick has talked about, like, over time, if you go back, if you're old like me, you remember when most search traffic was actually on the desktop. And so different real estate, different screen size. Guess what? Today, you don't have to be an internet marketing expert to realize, just look around you. Everybody's on their phone. They got their heads down. You got limited real estate. They're scrolling away. And so you've got very limited time in real estate to be able to help form these impressions. And, same thing on all these platforms. Put your best foot forward. What are the things that really differentiate you, make you stand out? The service that you're providing to clients. If you're in a state that allows you to publish video testimonials with client consent, I'd be putting those in Google Business Profiles. I mean, what's more powerful than have a client speak? You want to talk about marshaling the evidence of your reputation? What's more powerful than a video testimonial of a client talking about how you saved them in the worst time of their life?
I want to make sure we talk a little bit about local service ads, but it seems like a good segue to talk about the local rankings factor report. You guys talked about it on your podcast, but a couple of takeaways, just two that come to mind from that real quick before we talk about LSAs is, and I want Conrad to answer this, is one of the things I thought was interesting was where your map pin is placed, and to go check to make sure that it's not in the middle of a pond or in the middle of a highway was one I saw. And the second one was this idea about taking selfies, because I had heard that from other marketers before.
You're going to open me up with an ABA to talk about this? All right, game on.
So, yeah. So, well, and the only reason why I'm saying that is for our listeners, if they haven't checked out that local rankings factor report, then I think it's it's not very long. I think it's worthwhile to go look in because there's a lot of really valuable information there. I thought as a firm owner, it was quite interesting. So can you talk about what the local rankings factor report is, and then also the other questions I meant about the selfies?
Sure. So local ranking. So if you read only two things about legal marketing this year, read Clio Trends Report and read the local rankings factor report. The local rankings factor report it's old. It was originally done by David Mim. It's now done by Darren Shaw out of Canada. And he surveys I don't know, I think there's 30 odd experts, of which Gyi and I are two members of this, about what makes the world go round in local search. It's very insightful. The caveat I would put with this is it is not just lawyers, and lawyers are a bit different. The legal industry is dirtier. It's more competitive. It's more underhanded. And so you have to just read it with a lens of skepticism. But
I think y'all compared it to locksmiths, I think.
Locksmiths and plumbers and lawyers. Those are the worst, right? It used to be porn, pills, and poker. Now it's locksmiths, plumbers, and lawyers. Whether that is true. In terms of the selfie, so I'm going to use this as a bigger conversation. I am seeing a ton of these 3 easy steps to dominate the internets, right? And by the way, there are no easy steps to dominate the internets, right? It's a bunch of garbage that people like me like to tell you to make them look smart and give you hope, false hope, okay? One of those 3 easy steps that went around the legal marketing world was what you need to do. I'm serious. This sounds so stupid as I repeat this, but like you guys fell for it. Send your staff out with their cell phones, right? And go take selfies near the Space Needle if you're in Seattle, near Wrigley Field if you're in Chicago. Post those pictures to your GMB profile and they'll be geotagged and Google will know where you are, and you'll, in 3 easy steps, magically raise to the top of the local results. It's absolute garbage. And it was proliferated by a bunch of people who don't deserve their jobs in this industry.
So short, it doesn't work.
In the local rankings factor report, it was funny that was the number 2 thing that came out as a myth, right?
Myth, yes. I forgot what was the number. Do y'all remember what the number 1 myth was?
No.
Yeah, I don't remember it either. But in the interest of time, I'll move on because I want to ask Gyi a question, more of a sort of a SEO bent, which is okay. Tighter privacy restrictions, trustworthiness. I know there has been an announcement that Google has announced it's curtailing its use of third-party cookies in 2023. And so from a tracking standpoint and a list standpoint, which have the cookies up here, that how is that going to affect lawyers if the cookies go away, and how should we plan for it?
The cookies are going away at some point. Here's the shortest, simplistic version. So I think most people know there's all sorts of privacy issues going on with how internet marketing people track users across the web. Okay, well, there's been a big decision that's been made amongst the powers that be that we're going to move away from that model and we're going to move to this new model. But the most direct answer is this: focus on growing a list of emails for people that want to get information from you. So grow those subscriber lists, grow your, and I tell people, you go to a networking event, or you've got a client, or you meet somebody at a youth sports event, or whatever it is you're into, get them onto an email list, get them onto into your CRM, and start engaging with them, set reminders to reach out to them. But growing that list of emails, that's going to be the new cookie, essentially, which means that if you want to identify people on, create a Facebook audience, or you want to create an audience on Google, or you want to create an audience on LinkedIn, those custom audiences, they call that first party data, that's going to be the only stuff that you really have to be able to use to reach out to those people. And here's the thing, because again, the marketing people, we like to get into all the technical mumbo jumbo about it. If you think about it, it goes back to what Conrad said. It's like, the more consultations that you're getting from these interactions, like this is where this stuff comes from. It comes, people ask me all the time, we talk about email marketing. I need to fire out my firm newsletter. No one cares about your firm newsletter, right? You know what they care about? Oh, hey, it's your I just want to send you a message, happy birthday, or happy new year. Hope you have a great year. We see that when we run email campaigns that are just like wave hand emoji, and you get a response with wave hand emoji, happy new year. Hey, thanks for reaching out. I've been meaning to contact you because a friend of mine just got in a car accident, or a friend of mine's actually getting a divorce. It's those kind of connections. And so in addition to Google My Business, the second most important thing you probably should do online is create some kind of CRM system that is helping you grow that email list and helping you nurture it.
And so for those that don't know, what's a CRM system?
It's I'm going to use Matt Spiegel from Lawmatics, who, full disclosure, I'm an advisor on Lawmatics, but he calls it an attorney-client relationship management tool, right? So client relationship management is what we're talking about. I know Conrad he's big on this with HubSpot. I think Conrad's doing some amazing stuff. Like Conrad's the guy to talk about this. So I'm gonna let Conrad talk some CRM.
So tell us about CRMs, Conrad, and how they should be used effectively.
Yeah, I mean, overly simplistically, CRM is a list of contacts, and you can do increasingly sophisticated things with those, from remarketing to drip campaigns to making sure people get through your intake process in an efficient manner. The interesting thing, and I think this is missed by this industry, is Gyi is 100% right. And like, as privacy goes away, the asset that you're going to have is it's the size of your list, right? How many people do you have permission to legally have a relationship with online? That sounds creepy when I say that like that, but you know what I mean. That's the size of your list, and you should start. This is why CRM is going to be so amazingly important. And it's amazingly important. What happened in 2021 is the people who got this and figured it out have taken a massive step forward, and the people who haven't have had their lunch eat. And it's going to get bigger in 23 because the ability of marketing is going to be so dependent on your ability to A, have a big list, and B, grow that list, right?
So Rosa asked a question in there about the press releases. Do press releases work?
They work to line hold on, let me not be so cynical. No, they don't work. I mean, they're for the most part, for what you're doing as consumer-facing lawyers, I can't come across a good reason to have them work. Let me use an example. The press release used to be like this. All these journalists are like, what should I write about today? And then they fan through the press releases and, oh, here's an interesting thing about Mary Smith. Great, we'll write about that. That's like 100 years ago, right? In technology.
So Conrad's cynical, deservedly, because press releases are abused and spam. But here's my answer. If you've got something newsworthy to share, you should share it, right? If you're at a high profile case, or you've got something that happened that's like actually newsworthy, I would get that out there, because guess what? Journalists still need to cover the news, and they still need stories, and they still need experts. But here's the problem, to Conrad's point. What happens is marketing people go to law firms and be like, oh yeah, you got to do your press releases. So they go on pressrelease.com or whatever it is. I don't even remember what it's called anymore. PRnewswire.com. And they fire out breaking news. Our firm hired a new employee. What? I mean, is that really, maybe it is newsworthy where you're at a high profile firm and like that name's a big name or something. You got a lateral hire or something, but for most people in the community, you're serving like local divorce clients. You think they care about your new hire at your local law firm? Like, do you think they care that, that you got a new couch for your lobby? It's like the problem is the press releases have gotten abused. But if you've got something newsworthy, right? If you were if you had an appeal that was like a big appeal in a criminal case or something like that, like, yeah, you should be using for the press. The press is an extremely valuable tool.
No, love the press. My point is, like, the way to get that writer to write about this is to develop a relationship with them, hit them up on Twitter, make a freaking phone call, right? Comment on the stuff that they've written about that's relevant to what you're talking about, right? It's nurturing these relationships. That's where the press comes from, right? And that's where the coverage comes from, right?
So now let's go back real quick, because I see we probably have about 6 minutes, and I want to make sure we cover a couple of things. And if y'all have questions out there, make sure you start sending those in so we can make sure we get them answered before our time's up. But LSAs, I just want to talk about that real quick so that we can hit that. What are they? Should people be doing them?
Go ahead, Gyi.
So local services ads, I have no idea if you should do them. They command a very prominent place. They're the ads above the ads on Google. And so here's my answer. If you can profitably advertise, if you're using, if you want to try, if you've never done this before, you're going to try, set a target cost per acquisition for a client, create a budget from your plan to attempt the LSAs. Go look at what the competition looks like, because if you're competing here, look at this, Richard Harris Law Firm, he's got over 1,000 reviews. If you've got one review versus his 1,000, you're probably not going to do so well converting against Richard Harris here. So assess the competitive landscape. But if you can advertise on LSAs, pay per lead, and generate profitably, you should be there.
Okay, next question, because I'm doing this a little bit rapid fire. We talked about shiny object syndrome, but I have to pick on Clubhouse. Clubhouse, should we join it or not? Conrad, tell me.
What's Clubhouse? Like, I mean, it was, everyone was so excited about it. Like, it was the thing, it was going to change everything. Another one of those 3 easy steps points was to join Clubhouse. It'll get you clients, right? Like, I literally heard someone say this in a massive legal market. The number one thing you should be doing is joining Clubhouse. Come on. Like,
okay, I see we have like 4 minutes left. And so I want to give you guys each a chance to sort of summarize in the time we have left, because I don't see any additional questions. Conrad, tell us in like a minute, just what would you tell people going into 2022?
I think it's these 2 things. It's using CRM to start counting evaluating your marketing channels and your marketing vendors on how many consultations you're getting, not how many phone calls or form fills you're getting. If you can't do that, what are your conversations with your marketing agencies about anyway? We know this, 84% of the leads that we send to law firms are spam. 84%. So if we're talking about leads with our clients, 84% of the time we're not even talking about the right thing. So get to a point where you're looking at your consultations. And by the way, the technology is available for solos to do this at this point in time. You're just not doing it, right? So this used to be just in the realm of the big firms. Solo practitioner now can have 100%, not 100, very high data accuracy on where their consultations are coming from. Get this done.
Okay, Gyi, 1 minute. What should people be looking for?
Spend more time on understanding your business metrics, understanding your firm data. I mean, if you've been around a little while, you've got all sorts of data somewhere. I don't know if it's in an old spreadsheet or if it's in a yellow pad of paper, but understanding who your clients are, data informed information about who your target clients are. Do that research first. You know, we talk about if you're a car accident lawyer, you should be intimately familiar with what counties in your state tend to have the most car crashes and why. The same thing with all these practice areas. If you take a data-informed approach to your marketing, you will be so surprised of how much more efficient the time and money you spend on marketing is, especially if it's in the context of an actual financially driven plan versus just trying to throw things against the wall. Should I be on TikTok? I have no idea. Go try TikTok, but measure what you're actually trying to accomplish. Put an objective in there, and it's not impressions, it's not followers. You know, from an SEO standpoint, it's not links and how many blog posts. Tie it back to business metrics, but focus on that data. Understand your firm, understand those metrics, and then go forth and do something that's actually intentional versus just like the shotgun approach to marketing.
So I see that we've had a question, and I want to ask. I'm going to ask it because it's how can I learn to create an NFT to give them as a receipt? And so
go research Google. Go use Google. Go type that question into Google.
And so I would just say this about NFTs and cryptocurrency. I did see that on one of the trends to use NFTs in your marketing. Do y'all have anybody, just in the interest of time, who's even doing that?
I don't.
I have one client who's talked about it. This feels very Clubhouse, right?
So
it was here's my favorite dumb thing I've had recently. There was a press release about someone who created the first virtual law firm, right? First of all, it wasn't the first virtual law firm. Bob Ambrogi did a great sarcastic piece on this, but like, I don't know. It feels like a very Clubhouse allegory to me.
Right. I will say that I did a speech on NFTs, and there was a paper with it, and I thought about turning the paper into an NFT, but I stopped myself. And so on that, we're right at the hour, guys. Man, this has been awesome. We could probably keep doing this all afternoon, but I really appreciate Conrad and Gyi, you guys being here and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom. And to everyone who listened, thank you guys for joining us. Thanks to the ABA, and I wish everyone a very safe and happy holiday season. Thank you all for joining us.